Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to watch 90 Day Fiancé. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Let's get to it. So something was weird with my camera when I made this episode, and the focus wasn't working quite right. So if you see me out of focus, it's because my camera was acting a little funny. I apologize. Let's get to the show.
Yeah.
Very
Good
cool.
job.
You want to take another one like that?
Yes, I want more pictures here.
More pictures?
Yes.
We can do that.
Have you noticed that Julia has a third arm?
Yeah.
It's called her selfie stick.
And she doesn't go anywhere without it.
She takes so many photos.
They started.
Hey, as an Asian person, I take offense to this oppression of people with selfie sticks.
This is my
I'm
favorite
going to take my
food.
future daughter-in-law over and bring some burgers back. You guys hungry?
You'll wait here.
All right, we're
Okay, bye.
we'll
See
be
you
back in this
soon.
short, yeah.
Sit down.
Yeah.
So how did last night go?
It was mostly good.
Well, it was only day 1 of 90. So.
I know. So
All right, so we are about to see something very important. There's a lot of data that is going to come our way during this scene. Julia, has told Brandon that you need to talk with your mom about us sleeping in the same room. And you also need to talk with your mom in general about supporting what we want, essentially, is what Julia wants Brandon to do here. So we still do not know exactly what Brandon wants. Does he want to please his mom? Does he want to please Julia? Does he have his own wants on the inside? He expresses them sometimes, kind of. So that's one question mark. We'll see how that manifests in the data before us here. Also, maybe the mom is more flexible than it seems. Maybe Brandon won't even ask directly and he'll avoid the whole thing out of fear. Let's continue the show and let's watch. I think this is a very important scene. I hope that they let this thing breathe a little bit and not edit it up too much.
but the topic did come up about, again, the whole separate room situation.
Eh?
She's not happy about it.
I understand that.
Yeah.
But I also kind of felt like she seemed like she understood the respect issue.
Like, I guess going back to it, I don't know the purpose of it.
Okay, so it's not a terrible way to begin it. He is saying she doesn't like it, and I think what he's saying is, I'm okay with it. It's not my favorite thing, but I'm okay with it. I think he's communicated that. And he's opening the conversation with this question of, I don't really understand why. So that's not the best question if that's all that they talk about, because of course it's not the issue. The why isn't the issue. I mean, that is part of it, obviously, but the big thing that I'm guessing, so if I was to take a guess, I would guess that Brandon does not want to sleep in separate rooms with his fiancée, that he wants to sleep in the same room. Of course, if he had it his way, they would be living somewhere else, but he can't afford it. So I think he wants his mom to change her mind. So how would he navigate that, even though she seems pretty adamant about it? And the dad does too, by the way. So it's not just the mom, it's both the parents. So how do you navigate that? How do you communicate that? If he truly does want the mom to change her mind, how do you communicate that? Do you start with a question of, can you remind me why? And then maybe get into some other conversation about the factors. Maybe there's some wiggle room there. But I'm guessing that what needs to happen, if Brandon does in fact want that, which I'm not quite sure, then he would say something like this to the mom. Mom, I love you, I respect you, but we're on kind of a time crunch. We're not just coming back for a Thanksgiving weekend and sleeping in separate rooms. We're getting married soon, and we have to get to know each other, and this is a really big deal to Julia. She has said she's going to go back home if I don't convince you of this, because she is very upset about this whole thing. And so this is a big deal, and I really need this to change. And honestly, Mom, it's gonna change, whether you like it or not. And I'm sorry that it is disrespectful to you. That truly does bother me, but this is just how it's gonna happen. I'm a grown man, and if you want me to be a grown man and to grow up, then you're gonna have to respect me too. So, let's talk about this. Now, or something along those lines is what we'd be looking for. taking care of the mom while also just saying, look, this is just what's going to happen, Mom. Now, who knows? I wouldn't, as a therapist, I wouldn't say to him, that's what you should do. But as a therapist who watches a reality TV show, I'm waiting to see what he is going to do here and where is his line. I cannot imagine him saying the way I role-played it earlier. I cannot imagine that. My guess is what's going to happen is he's going to ask this question of why. She will give her reasons. He'll kind of argue some of the fine points. She'll shoot that down because it's easily debatable. And then he will walk away going, well, I tried. And he'll go back to Julia and he'll say, it didn't work. And he won't have actually stated very firmly what his position is, of which we don't really know what his position is, I don't think.
Just doesn't feel right to us before you're married. Even when you are married, it still might feel a little odd to us if you're in the same room in our house. And be quite honest, I don't want to hear anything. I can't do that. And I'm just not comfortable with it.
Interesting. And I thought this earlier, but that was actually a little bit more data in the area of, I wonder if the mom has some kind of sexual trauma. Of course, I have no idea. But the way she talked about that, of just like, I don't want to hear the two, I just don't want to know. And if you're not in the same room, then, there's no sex stuff. And there's a lot of people out there who either because of a lot of sex negativity that's given to them by culture or religion or their family or something, that would make them have a lot of reasons why they wouldn't want their adult son and his future wife sleeping in the same room. Just because of the idea of the two of them having sex nearby would just really, really be against all the sex negativity, the sex negative notions that they've absorbed over their life. The other possibility, again, total speculation, the mom has some actual trauma regarding sex. It wouldn't be unusual to have at least some. A lot of people are, particularly women. And it actually is mildly traumatically triggering to her in some way. Who knows? But let's rewind that and watch that again, because you see not just a preference that she has. She seems to have almost a visceral reaction to the idea of being exposed to family members having sex, or the idea of it. Let's rewatch that.
I guess going back to it, I don't know the purpose of it.
It just doesn't feel right to us before you're married. Even when you are married, it still might feel a little odd to us if you're in the same room in our house. And be quite honest, I don't want to hear anything. I can't do that. And I'm just not comfortable with it.
So you heard her say, even if you were married, I still wouldn't want it. So it can't be a religious thing, right? Because if you're married, then once you're across a certain threshold of marriage, then it's fine, right? It's not even a cultural thing, really. Well, maybe it's kind of a cultural thing, but if you're married, anyway, point is that you hear that, it's like, even if you're married, it just bothers me. You kind of feel that visceral reaction that she has around it. I would want to know, if they were having this conversation in my office, I would ask the mom, what is it about that bothers you? Tell me about your feelings about that. I hear that it's a value, which you're entitled to 100%. But what are the feelings that you have when you think about the anticipatory worry about hearing a noise in their bedroom and maybe it's sex that's happening in there? What feelings would you be having in that moment? So now, I'm not saying you're supposed to, as a family member or as a mother, agree to this. I'm just saying that to bring it out into the open, it might help everyone to understand. For example, if the mom has sexual trauma in her history, which wouldn't be unusual, it's a lot more common than people think, and it is getting triggered by the prospect of hearing or even having an idea of the two of them having sex behind a door that's down the hall, and it's actually just very, very difficult for her to deal with. If that was brought up to the surface, then Brandon and Julia, if they understood that, would go, oh, it's not just that the mom has some kind of weird cultural preference or that she wants to control us or that she is trying to break us up. She actually has an issue there that is particular to her, which makes some sense. So it wouldn't necessarily mean that they would relent, but it would contextualize it a little bit more. Who knows? But a lot of times that's what's going on there. A lot of times when we have traumas and we try to protect ourselves from being triggered, we will impose a lot of rules on our own life, but also on other people. And the other people, unless they know where those protections are coming from, they will just perceive it as being controlling of other people. For y'all out there, when people are being controlling to you, one of the ways of conceptualizing it is when they're trying to control me, what trauma are they avoiding by dictating to me how my behavior should go? It's actually an effective way of looking at it. It doesn't mean that you're supposed to deal with being controlled by any means. If you're being controlled, you don't deserve that. But it can help, if you're in a relationship with that person, it can help give you some road forward in terms of how to help the situation, particularly if you're a therapist. Let's continue watching.
I thought it went pretty well last night when we talked, but apparently she has a problem with it and it's become a red flag. So I don't know how it's going to turn out because we're pretty adamant about, our wishes. And it sounds like she's pretty adamant about, him wanting to talk to us and make us change our mind. But
so this is unfortunate. Again, her narrative might be accurate. Her narrative is, he is fine with it. Brandon is fine with it. Julia is not fine with it. And Julia is forcing him to talk with me to convince, that's the narrative. Julia is the bad person. Now, that could actually be a correct narrative because we actually don't know what Brandon wants. Another narrative, if Brandon were to reveal himself or know himself, would be that he doesn't want it either. That Julia is just reminding him, look, we both don't want this. So if I was a family therapist for this family, I would definitely want to establish what does Brandon want? Because without that, there's this massive triangle between Betty and Brandon and Julia, and it's just going to get worse. Without Brandon knowing what he wants, without him saying, look, I like my mom and I like her values and I want to follow her rules. And I'm okay with that. And so, Julia, I'm sorry that I get it, but until we live on our own, we're going to follow those values because that's what I want. I want to respect my mom's rules. Or, Mom, me and Julia are going to sleep in the same room, and that's just how it's going to be. And I get your values, but it's not practical given our situation and our age. So, what does Brandon want? Thus far, he is just trying to placate both people, and it's just aggravating the situation.
I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe when she has her own room, when she sees her own room, she'll fall in love with it, and she'll be like, okay, I understand.
She's just gonna push me harder to leave the house because of it.
Yikes. So the mom is saying, maybe she'll get used to it. I doubt it, but the mom is being hopeful. And his response is, nope. She's just going to keep pushing. Okay, that's probably true. Brandon, what do you want? You're not a leaf in the wind. You are the central figure in this equation. You are the tiebreaker in the voting. What do you want? What are you wanting to do? That's important. And until he knows that, which I actually don't think he does, and I don't think that's his fault. I think that's the way he was raised. Until he knows that and can express that, both Julia and the mom are just going to be aggravated by the whole situation, which honestly, watching it is a little aggravating. But maybe he'll say, maybe he'll step forward and say, this, I'm taking this side, or this is my preference. This is what I want.
And if she absolutely says, that's it, we got to go, what do I do?
I'm not sure you're in a position to move out.
Uh-huh.
And I don't want to be hanging that over your head, but I don't know that you want to, be financially in a position right now where you're trying to
I don't
get married and you're trying to have a reception and a honeymoon.
Yeah, I know. I know that.
Hopefully she'll come around and see our side.
All right, so that was interesting. So it sounds like he can move out, but he doesn't want to because he's trying to save for the wedding and the reception and all that stuff. That's interesting. Again, as a therapist, I don't have an opinion about that. It's just up to them to figure out how they want to do that. But as a civilian, I would look at him and I would say, there's not going to be a wedding or a reception if the two of you don't live on your own. living with your mom is going to be so complicating to your situation. It is going to aggravate everybody. I would imagine, like if you were Brandon's friend, I'm imagining that you would think, look, dude, forego a reception and have a very cheap wedding, but move out, buddy. Like, if you want to start this relation, if you want to even have this relationship, I'm guessing it would go so much easier if you didn't live with the parents. So I don't know. Let's rewind that. It sounded like he could move out, but he doesn't want to.
Hopefully she'll come around and see our side.
My mom's still not budging on this whole separate room thing, and there's no resolving it except for just the fact that I f***ed up. I wish I had told Julia about my parents wanting us to stay in separate rooms before she had arrived. If she thinks I don't tell her something, she gives me hell.
Well, yeah, because you're lying by omission. That the way he phrased it right there was interesting. I don't know. Maybe if he elaborated on it, it would seem more understandable. But the way he phrased it right there was, yeah, you know, it's the weirdest thing. When I withhold things from her, man, she gets real angry sometimes, boy. It's like, yeah, by not telling her a critical detail like that is akin to lying. It's lying by omission, and you have motivation to lie because you're trying to trick her into coming to the United States. So it doesn't feel good to be deceived in that way. The other thing I'll say is, if you had told her before she came, that wouldn't have changed anything. She still would have said, no, tell your mom no. So it's just interesting that he's in that space of just like, oh, I screwed up. I should have told her earlier. I guess now I got to live in this situation. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, you have a lot of options here. It sounds like you can move out, one. Two, you can just tell your mom, sorry, you know, I'm really sorry, but we're just not going to do that. And I promise you, you will never hear a thing. I don't want to go into details, but you're not going to hear anything. There's not going to be any talk about anything. Maybe we are doing things, maybe we're not. I don't want to talk about it with you. You don't want to hear about it. So I promise you, but we're not going to sleep in separate rooms. That's ridiculous. We're grown adults. We're engaged. I understand your value, but I'm really sorry. You know, and if the mom said, nope, not going to happen, then I guess move out is the thing. I don't understand. Because all I see is pain ahead for this family. And if it could be solved by foregoing an expensive reception and having him move out now, if I was his buddy, I'd just be like, dude, move out.
I'm worried if I tell Julia, she's gonna eventually like get into that kind of mood and just stay there. And it definitely won't go well. I've seen Julia explode before. I can't see her keeping a cool head about it.
Yeah. I don't think anyone would keep a cool head about it. So, because it's not just that you're sleeping in separate rooms, it's that you aren't standing up to your mom, and you aren't even necessarily on board with the notion that the two of you deserve to sleep in the same room. It's a weird scenario. I mean, if you just sort of zoom out for a second and think about the nature of this conflict, that these engaged, late 20s people just want to sleep in a bed together at night. And that is the primary focus of this entire family. It's just kind of interesting, right? And as a family therapist, one of the things that we were taught and that we look for is the thing that people are talking about are just a metaphor for what's really happening underneath. So let's imagine what would be the real issue underneath all of this. Of maybe they don't want Brandon to move out of the house at all. Maybe they don't want him to grow up. Maybe they're worried about having to live in an empty nest. Maybe everyone is terrified of Brandon being independent and having something bad happen to him. Maybe there's a family member who died because they moved out of the house too soon, or who knows. Sometimes there are stuff like that in families where you find that Brandon has a cousin or something, or the father has another child from in another family who grew up too fast and had a terrible consequence happen to them. And sometimes families are still suffering from those traumas, and it will affect stuff like this. Who knows? But I'd be very curious as to what is fueling this rigidity. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, you can do so. You don't have to, no pressure. You can also hit the bell that gives you an email every time that we post something. You can also like the videos. That always makes me feel good because I have a fragile self-esteem. And you can take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.